good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you for tuning into this Road to Chevening webinar. My name is Dervin Osborne. I am the Chevening Program Coordinator for Jamaica, and I'm a 2017 Chevening alumnus. I went to the University College London and studied social development practice. Now, joining me are Jovan and Monique, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves. Jovan, you can go first.
Thank you, Dervin. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm Jovan Johnson, a 2017 Chevening Scholar. I studied at the London School of Economics, MSc in Development Management. It was just an amazing year that continues to influence my life's direction. I'm currently an investigative journalist at The Gleaner. Thanks, Dervin.
All right, Monique, you.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if it's evening in all parts of the world. My name is Monique Rose. I am a 2016 Chevening alum. I too went to University College London like Dervin. I studied for a master's in environment and sustainable development. And since coming back to Jamaica, I now work in architecture and urban planning, contributing to sustainable development in Jamaica.
All right, thank you so much, Jovan and Monique. Now, let's get to the meat of the matter, the reason why you guys are all here. So this session, this information session will run for about ideally, I'd like to say that it will run for an hour, but me no say it not gonna happen. It's gonna run for about 2 hours, and it's gonna be because, you know, of the many questions that you have, and we will try to answer as many questions that you throw at us, just to ensure that you have the right information to prepare you to apply for Chevening, which is exactly what this session is about. Now, we'll run for 2 hours, and we'll give a pretty comprehensive overview of the scholarship, to give you all the information you need in order to prepare for the scholarship. Now, we will cover 3 main segments, right? The first segment will be focused on giving you an introduction to the scholarship, which includes eligibility. I know a lot of you have questions about eligibility. I will say it from now, there is no upper age limit. You can be 100 and apply. Just make sure, say, you come back and do something with the scholarship, right? In addition to that, we'll also be covering what the scholarship covers. Yes, it's a fully funded scholarship, but what exactly does that mean? And we'll also talk about what the scholarship offers beyond just the amazing opportunity to go to the UK and to pursue a master's degree. The second segment will provide a guidance on finding the right program for you. I know a lot of you are probably a little bit daunted about how to even go about finding that right program. Well, this presentation will also cover that. And lastly, we'll give you some pointers on how to write a winning essay. Now, the essays are an integral part of the Chevening application process. It is really what gets you to the point of being shortlisted for an interview. And those essays are what actually guides our conversation with you during those interviews. So we want to ensure that you get them correct. Now, of course, my fellow Chevening scholars who are joining me here, and also I see a few of them are actually on the call, who have gone through the process, will also be contributing to the discussion. And at the end of every segment, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. Now, I ask that you either use the Q&A option below or raise your hand, and I'll give you the opportunity to speak and to ask your questions, and then we'll just answer it live, right? Otherwise, you can just use the chat box or the Q&A box, and both Jovan and Monique will help me to monitor those questions and ensure that we answer as much as possible. Now, without further ado, let us get straight into it. I just have to share my screen again. Yes, it is a PowerPoint presentation, but a beer vibes, and it's going to be pretty nice, right? Let me find it. Just want to ensure that everyone's seeing the right thing.
We're seeing presenter view.
All right, just a second. All right, perfect. Now we're on the right screen. Let me just make sure so you can see me. All right, so what are the Chevening scholarships? We're going to start from there. Now, the Chevening Scholarship is one of the UK government's international scholarship programs, right? So as it says here, it's the UK government's global scholarship program funded by the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and partner organizations. It's available in over 160 countries, and I actually know that a few of those countries are represented here today. I know that some countries from the Caribbean are represented, and also some countries in the African region. But I'm pretty sure that the information that we will be providing during this presentation is relevant to anyone who is interested, no matter where you are. Right. So what is key to share is that the scholarship offers the opportunity to pursue a one-year master's degree in the UK. Now, that's very key. I know a lot of people are used to master's degree being 2 years or even more, but these programs are for pursuing a one-year master's degree in the UK. And majority, I would say, or most or many of the master's degrees that you'll be doing in the UK are 1 year anyway. So that shouldn't be a problem for you. Now, I want to mention, like I said before, that Chevening is one of the UK government's international scholarships. Now, there are others that are available in Jamaica that include the Rhodes Scholarship that provides masters, which is a master's scholarship, a fully funded one, and also the Commonwealth Scholarship, which offers both masters and PhD level scholarships. But just to be reminded that the Chevening Scholarship is just for master's scholarships only, all right? Master's degrees only. Now, who can apply? What it says here is that Chevening scholars are passionate about creative, positive change in their community, in their home countries. They are good at building relationships, are resilient and determined, and have short, medium, and long-term plan for achieving their goals. Now, Chevening scholars tend to rise to prominent positions in their countries and their chosen field. And we're going to be mentioning a few of those Chevening scholars in a little bit. But you see, 3 of them are currently on this call: Monique and myself, who went to UCL, and Jovan, who unfortunately went to the LSC. There's a whole story behind that. I'm still have up Jovan for going to UCL, LSC over UCL, which I'm gonna get over as yet. Now, I want to mention that Chevening does not have an ideal person. There isn't an ideal Chevening candidate because it's not as prescriptive as traditional scholarships. Now, Chevening looks for people who want to make a difference in the space that the individual is in, and persons who believe that they can make an impact. In the past, we've awarded persons who are doing nuclear technology alongside someone doing fashion, alongside someone doing theater. And this year alone, we had persons doing public administration. We also had someone doing public health. We also had someone doing dementia studies, Deborah Calendar, who you just saw in that video. And they were doing these really important things alongside persons who are also doing other important things, such as addressing climate change, and of course wanting to solve cancers or identified cancers using artificial intelligence. So huge shout out to Kenil Peart there, who was the first Jamaican to be doing artificial intelligence under the Chevening Scholarship Program. And also dementia studies, Deborah is the first Jamaican to be doing that area of study from Jamaica under the Chevening Program. Now, in terms of eligibility, this is the criteria. You must be a citizen of a Chevening eligible country, and yes, Jamaica is one, like the previous slide said. The Chevening Scholarship is available in over 160 countries, and luckily Jamaica is one of those countries. You must already have an undergraduate degree. Now, it is a master's level scholarship, and therefore you must have at least an undergraduate degree. It is possible for you to apply if you have a master's degree, but you don't have an undergraduate degree, because I'm mindful that there are programs that are like that. But the key thing to remember is that you must at least have an undergraduate degree. And yes, if you have a master's degree from before, you can still apply for the Chevening Scholarship. You must also have 2 years work experience, and you must not have received a UK government funded scholarship to study in the UK. And of course, something of important note is that there is no upper age limit, right? In the video that you just saw, Deborah so very proudly mentioned that she's 50 years old, and she did not feel like she had fulfilled her full potential and there was still more for her to do. And of course, the Chevening Scholarship was that program for her to enable her to take that next step. What I want to mention here is that the eligibility criteria does not mention anything about a GPA. And that is another example of how the Chevening Scholarship differs from traditional scholarship that might require you to have like a GPA of 10 or recommendation from Jesus himself, right? Instead, the scholarship focuses more on your professional work experience and the potential you have to make an impact. The GPA only matters, however, when you're applying to the individual universities. And we'll clear that up a little bit more. Now, it says here that before being awarded a Chevening Scholarship, selected candidates must also hold an unconditional offer from at least one of the three universities of their choices or the three courses of their choices. Now, just to mention, what this means is that, like when you're in a primary school and right before you do your GSAT, or for the more mature audiences, the common entrance, I don't know what else may have come before that. But so when you're in primary school and you had to choose those courses that you wanted to do or those schools that you wanted to do, you had to make a list of about 3 to 5 schools that you wanted to go to before high schools that you wanted to go to before doing the exam. It's somewhat similar. So what you do is you apply to the Chevening Scholarship that provides you with the funding opportunity to go to any institution of your choice in the UK. But we'll get into that a little bit more. But just to reiterate what the requirements are, is that you must be a citizen of a Chevening eligible countries, and some of the countries that are represented here, for example, Jamaica, the Bahamas, Nigeria, they're all Chevening eligible countries. Then you must have an undergraduate's degree, which means that you must have a bachelor's degree. You must have at least 2 years work experience, and that work experience includes paid, unpaid, voluntary and internship experience, right? So it takes a very holistic approach. You must not have received a government scholarship previously, and there's no upper age limit. Claudine, I see that you do have a question, but we'll take questions at the end of this segment, all right? Okay, so in addition, right, so before being awarded the scholarships, the candidate must have an unconditional offer from a UK university of their choice, and you don't need to be accepted to the universities before applying for Chevening, but you must have an offer to the university by the time July 2022 comes around. It says 2021 here, but that's an error. It's July 2022. So what it means basically, right, is that when you apply for the Chevening Scholarship, there will be an option there that asks you to select the schools or the program that you're interested in pursuing to. You don't have to have started to apply for that school as yet. You don't have to have submitted an application, but you need to make sure that you are accepted to that institution by July of next year, if you want to take up the scholarship. But again, I'll show you how that works later on in the presentation. Now, what else does Chevening offer, or what does the Chevening Scholarship cover? Now, it covers the fully funded tuition. So for whatever year that you want to do, as long as it's not an MBA, Chevening covers the full cost of that tuition, no matter if it costs £19,000 or £26,000 or £30,000. If you are selected for the scholarship, Chevening will cover it. Now, a lot of people have asked questions about the partner organizations that you might see when you go on the Chevening website, but just to be clear, that whether or not the school that you chose to go to, or the school that you've chosen is a partner institution, should not matter to you, right? Chevening will cover the cost of the tuition if you are selected for the Chevening Scholarship. Now, in addition to tuition fees, it also gives you a monthly allowance at a set rate for one individual, right? So you can't bring your whole family with you and expect to live on one little Chevening stipend. It's sufficient and it's really good and it sustains you, but it's good to sustain one person. Jovan, Monique, do you guys have anything to add to the Chevening stipend? Because I know that it's a big part of the conversation frequently.
I think it would worthwhile to mention that it's dependent on your location. I don't know how you feel about talking around that. So
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say persons who go to school in the London area because it's urban and the cost of living is more expensive in London. They would get a different value of the stipend compared to those who might be further afield, like Scotland, or Wales, or even just outside of outside of London, City of London, but still within Britain.
Right. So the stipends are actually prorated based on the standard of living in the respective area that you're going to be in. So London, come like Kingston, everywhere expensive, right? So therefore, you need to have enough money to sustain you during your time living in Bashment, London. But if you're living in somewhere that is a little bit more, rural, not so urban as London. For example, if you went to Scotland thereabout, you find that the standard of living is not that high, so therefore you get a stipend that matches that. But regardless of where you are and the stipend that you receive, it would still actually be enough. It's sufficient to cover you, to ensure that you can pay your bills with it in the UK, and also to take time to travel and explore. Now, in addition to the fully covered tuition as well as the monthly allowance, you also get a return flight to and from the UK. So you're booked from Jamaica, go all the way to England. It's a fully funded scholarship, guys. So there, it's unlike that you come across anything regarding to your time leaving the Jamaica to go to the UK that you'd be required to pay for. Down to the visas are fully covered. If it is that you have to do any tests that are relevant to traveling to the UK, that will be covered as well. So it's really a comprehensive and fully covered scholarship. So you get a flight, you get your return flight to and from the UK, and also you get additional grants to cover essential expenditure. Now, something that is key to note here is how the financial cap works. Now, there's for persons interested in doing an MBA, that's a master's in business administration only, there's a financial cap of £22,000, which means that if you are interested in doing an MBA, you need to find a course that is £22,000 or less. If it costs more, then you would have to find the remaining parts of the remaining parts of that tuition to pay. But that only applies to MBAs. If you're doing a master's of science or you're doing a master's of arts, then of course you don't need to worry about the cost of the tuition. The financial cap only applies to persons that are interested in doing an MBA program. All right, so what else does the Chevening Scholarship offer? So I like to brag about Chevening and talk about how it provides a very holistic experience. And from the get-go, you'd realize that it's not just a scholarship that is about focusing on academics. The fact that it doesn't even ask you about your academics or your academic, your grades and stuff like that as a part of the eligibility criteria, it does show to some extent that it looks beyond that, right? So it wants to build you as a person individually and also within your profession. So Chevening scholars are invited to a vast program of exclusive networking events, talks, trips across the UK, and voluntary opportunities. And all of these are intended to build and amplify your own professional development, right? On graduating, scholars join a network of over 50,000 other Chevening alumni who together form an influential and highly regarded global network. So here are some of the actual activities that you can find or you can make use of if you are given the Chevening Scholarship and if you get to go abroad. Now, some of the exclusive events include internships at the BBC World Service, and someone who I'm going to be mentioning later on today, Andrea Chisholm. She's one of our scholars who have received the internship this year, so she's currently on that program. There are other volunteering opportunities. You can also participate in events such as Commonwealth Day. There's also the Chevening competition and the Changemakers photography competition, but there are also some very high-level opportunities that you can make use of. For example, exclusive trips to 10 Downing Street. Also, expanding your your cultural palettes, like going to Stonehenge and Manchester United, just so that you can brag and say you've been there, right? Sometimes it's just to be able to say that you've gone to these places, just randomly bring it up in a one conversation. You order pizza and just talk about all the time, that time you went to Italy and you had the best pizza in the world. No reason, just because you want to show off. And I feel like that's a legitimate reason to do that anyway. So Sheathing provides you with these opportunities, right? And also you can visit some of the more traditionally known spots, like the Harry Potter film studios, and of course hiking up Mount Snowdon. Monique, Jovan, do you guys have any experiences from your time in the UK that you want to mention? Any trips, any excursions?
Well, for me, one of the interesting things about the why I selected the course development management at London School of Economics was the consultancy that it afforded. And my group, we worked with Transparency International, looking at development finance institutions and so on. And after we presented for the school, Transparency International gave us a fully paid trip to Germany. Of course, you're in Europe, so it's not just a big deal to go from London to Germany. But for me it was. And I think for all of us as students at the time, I mean, to present your work and then to have the persons you're doing the work for say, hey, the quality of work was so good that we're inviting you over to come and make presentations to the bigger bosses. And we did that in Berlin. So that was one of the highlights of my year.
Monique, do you have
Free
any
time,
highlights?
free money.
Yes, certainly. Like Jovan, when I did field research for my course, my entire year group was took a trip to Peru to present our research to the Peruvian government. And so that was a big deal. Imagine presenting to people at Gordon House here in Jamaica if you're not from Jamaica. But while there are opportunities to travel outside of the UK, Chevening encourages you to travel within the UK, and there are lots of places to go, as Dervin mentioned. You can see the ones on the screen. I made friends with most of the persons who were in my cohort, sorry, and I visited one of them in Wales. So when you get this scholarship, you have to make use of friends because that's free accommodation. So when I visited a friend of mine in Wales, and I went to, I can't remember the name of the museum, but it should be the Cardiff Museum, and I saw paintings by Picasso and Monet and Mondrian in the flesh. Now, if you know about classical art and fine art, and you see those things in clear view, you realize why these persons are so great. So that was something that stood out for me, and that was within the UK. So I'm sure people want to travel outside and see the rest of Europe, but there are lots of places within the UK: Stonehenge, Bath, Brighton. There are plenty of places within the UK that you can have a full adventures and travels.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna make them outdo me when I'm talking about for them program and which part them go. I went to Brazil. I went to nice, I went to nice Brazil. And Jovan kind of mentioned that it's technically not that big of a deal to travel from like the UK to go into Europe. And it's there's actually a lot of truth to that. The plane fare like cheap, like you can get like a £5, which is what equivalent to about $1,000 a flight from the UK into Europe. And we used to rinse that out, right? So now we can actually talk about things. So when people talk about the Mona Lisa and how them see a picture of the Mona Lisa on social media, I can simply say I've been there. I have been there. Granted, me getting there for free, and it's a bus me take from England go to Paris, but that no count. The fact is, I was there, and you never did it. The only thing you have to go by is a picture. I've seen it with my own eyes, right? So the experiences are really unmatched. Like you cannot put a value on them. And like Monique said, I've always told people, especially the Chevening scholars who are going off every year, is to try to travel around the UK as much as you can, or as much as they can. Because the truth is, there is somewhere in the UK that you can find in Europe. Are there somewhere in the UK? There's always something new in the UK that you can discover, and I've always found that to be like an amazing just thing. Just getting up and just going for a walk and discovering something that you probably have not discovered before. I didn't even know existed. And I think just traveling around the UK, it's affordable, and there's always something new for you to discover. And of course, being a Jamaican, or from someone from the Caribbean, or someone from an African region, there's a huge Afro-Caribbean population there. So you can always feel at home, or find some way just by taking a bus or going for a walk to feel as though you're at home. Now, the Chevening Alumni Network is one that we cannot actually not talk about. So the Chevening program has been running since 1983, and the alumni form the backbone of the program. Now, currently, there's over 50,000 Chevening scholars, persons who have been awarded the Chevening Scholarship since 1983 worldwide, and they constitute a highly regarded network of skilled professionals working in a range of fields, including helping to tackle climate change, championing gender equality, working in journalism, like my big friend there, so Jovan, business, law, and other fields. Now, since 1983, 275 Jamaicans have been awarded the Chevening Scholarship. Now, around the world, you can find notable Chevening alumni, right? So, for example, Carlos, who is the president of Costa Rica, who went to the University of Sussex in 2008. You also have Amina Mohammed, who is the secretary for education in Kenya, and she went to University of Oxford in 1993. And this last person here, whose name I won't say because I might mess it up, is a social entrepreneur and founder of Beautiful Hearts at the and she went to the University of Sussex in 2015. Now, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity just to type quickly in the box here if you can name some of Jamaica's notable Chevening scholars.
Are we allowed to enter?
No, you cannot. No, you cannot enter. You cannot enter. All right, Kamisha Kelly, but we always have somebody mentioning Kamisha Kelly every year. It's a thing. I've actually awarded her to be the more popular Chevening scholar. So Monique Rose, Javier Nelson, Vashon Brown, Tishana Mullings, Cleo Bell Lewis. Yes, all of these people are.
My name was mentioned 3 times, Dervin.
Huh?
My name has been mentioned 3 times.
I've noted that. And nobody called my name, but that's fine. That is fine. Archibald Gordon, Ajani Jacobs, Melissa Porter. Yes, all of these beautiful people, all of these wonderful people are Chevening scholars. Rayan, thank you so much for joining the call. All right, now here are some of ours. Right. So we have Heather Pinnock, who's the general manager for UDC. She's a 1998 Chevening scholar, and she went to the University College London. Of course, I had to put her at the very top. We also had Alanda Terlang, who is the state minister for at the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, and he's a 2010 Chevening Scholar. He went to the University of Warwick. And we also have Andrea Chisholm. The A is missing there, and she's a journalist, and she's a 2020 Chevening Scholar, and she went to the London School of Economics. So you see, the Chevening scholars from Jamaica have always gone on to do really impressive things. Some of you mentioned Kamisha Kelly. She was the valedictorian in her year in 2016. She went to University of York. You also had Nicolette Bryan, who in her year was the Chevening social media ambassador. And every year the Chevening scholars leave an impact. In the 2019 cohort, the 2019-2020 cohort, a number of them actually received awards for their amazing voluntary contribution while being on the program. Lanville Blake being one of them, who actually was one of the top volunteers for Chevening in his year, and he was also the poster boy for his university, the University of Swansea. Now, let us look at the application timeline, right? So the applications opened on August 3rd and they close at 7 a.m. on November 2. Now, when you go on the Chevening website, you will see 12 GMT. I think that means 12 British time, but that they're currently 6 hours ahead of us. By the time it comes around to that, they'll be 5 hours ahead. Just be mindful that it's 7 a.m. Jamaica time that you need to submit your applications by. And my advice to you is to submit them 2 days before, because within that 24-hour block, when the Chevening, before the Chevening before the Chevening applications close, there's always an influx of application that somehow ends up crashing the site, and you don't want to be in that unfortunate group of persons who are not able to submit their application, and they're not gonna reach out to me and they're gonna tell us I can't do nothing. Right. So just ensure that you try to ensure that you submit your applications at least 2 days before. Now, in early November,
Can I
there'll be
jump
an
in here,
independent.
Darwin? I would just say, just a word of advice. As soon as you finish with one document, because there are a series of documents, just upload it. As Darwin said, 2 days before is suitable, but as soon as you finish with some, just upload it right away. Don't wait.
All right. Now, in January, February, thereabout, applicants are shortlisted for an interview, and those interviews for the past 2 years, because of COVID, have been held virtually. Who knows? Perhaps next year we could be doing them physically, but they're usually held at either the British High Commission here in Jamaica, or we've actually started to make it a little bit more accommodating and accessible. So we now have two interview sites in Jamaica, one in Kingston and one in Montego Bay. Now, after the interview period, there's in around June thereabout, that is when the announcements of the conditionally selected scholars are announced, and then after which there's a deadline of July that says that you must have a conditional offer, an unconditional offer from one of your selected universities. And then by September, October, thereabout, you then depart for the UK to start your amazing year as a Chevening Scholar. So you'll see that the whole application process is really takes about a year, right? So if you submit your applications now, if you're successful, you won't be leaving until the next September. So it's really a year-long process, and it can really be very daunting, especially when they give you very vague timelines. And I think that's also a part of that's also a part of the Chevening thrill. They always say early June is when the announcement will be made, and early June means anything from June 1 to June 15. So you know, say as June 1 comes out, you start fret and you start stress out. But I actually really do believe it's a part of the amazing journey of being a Chevening Scholar. Just the stress. If you're not experience the stress, I feel like, are you really a Chevening Scholar though? Are you really a Chevening Scholar? All right, so that is the end of this segment. I'm gonna just stop the screen share at this point, just to allow you guys to ask your questions if you have any. The next segment, we're gonna be looking at how we go about finding the right program. So you can raise your hand, like I mentioned before, and I'll give you the opportunity to speak and to ask your questions, or you can use the Q&A box at the bottom and we'll get to that. So Alicia Coombs, your hand is currently up and I'm gonna allow you to speak. All right, Alicia, you're on mute. Are you still there?
Hi, sorry, that's my error. Hi, everyone.
All right, so you don't have a question.
No, I do not at this moment.
All right, no problem. All right, Tara Edmond, I'm going to allow you to speak and ask your question.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This might be a silly question, but humor me. All right, so I have recently started going through the website, signed up, submitted, answered a few other questions, but I'm seeing that the essay section is very important. I don't want to proceed and click anything. Is there anywhere that I can locate the requirements for the essay or the topic without clicking through further on the form? Because I've answered the question in regards to work experience, I think that is it, and preferred location for interview. So that's just my dilemma currently. I don't want to go any further on anything that I can subtract or correct.
Okay,
but
so
I
as long
really want to get ahead.
Sure, no
Sorry, go
problem.
ahead.
Sure, no problem, Tara. And there's no silly questions here, by the way. I expect the whole not supposed to have silly question, right? I came prepared for all the silly questions, but there's really no silly question. And to answer your question, we're going to be covering that in this webinar, by the way. And going through the presentation, going through the Chevening website, as long as you don't click submit, you are actually able to go on each panel to see what it is that's required, right? So as long as you don't click submit, that would be at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, then you should be good. Does that answer your question?
All right, I'll give it another go because I was using a cell phone
Oh,
to
okay.
view it. So probably that's what caused that error.
All right, sure, no problem.
All right,
All
thank
right,
you.
sure. Latoya, I am going to allow you to speak. Latoya Marshall Brown.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a quick question. If you already have a master's, would you be qualified for this scholarship?
Jovan, do you want to answer that?
You absolutely do qualify. I mean, I had a master's from the University of the West Indies before I applied, and it did bother me because I felt that I would be put through extra ringers, which I probably did go through. But certainly they don't discriminate at all. Chevening is amazing, but you're fine. Just apply.
Yeah, I should mention though that if it is that you're applying, if you already have a master's degree, generally the understanding is that yes, you can still apply, but there is that question of what the master's degree is that you already have and how is it different from the master's degree that you're planning to get, right? So if there's a clear distinction between them, then I think you're in the clear there. But if there is somewhat of a similarity in the master's degree that you already have plus the one that you want to do, you may be asked a little bit more to explain or justify why it is that you need to do an extra master's degree. All right. But in a nutshell, it does not prevent you from doing another Chevening, is not that it does not prevent you having a master's degree does not prevent you from applying for the Chevening Scholarship. I think it happens a lot that scholars from Jamaica already have a master's degree, but they've been able to explain why it is that they needed this additional master's degree. All right, so that is just something to be mindful of. All right, Latoya.
Thank you.
All right, sure. Jodianne. Jodianne Sadler, you're up next.
Is good night?
Hi. Was that a
I
mistake
don't
as
know.
well?
Well, my name is Melanie. I don't know why is it showing as Jody, and that's my
Okay.
sister.
Okay.
Yes. Good night, everyone. I have two questions. One second. I'm sorry, I live near to the roadside.
So very contextually relevant.
I'm sorry. Okay. Two questions. Firstly, are there like a specific amount of persons that would be selected for the scholarship? And two, I know you said fully funded, but does that include the visa, like if you don't have a UK visa?
Okay, so to answer the easier question, yes, it's a fully funded scholarship, so it covers the visa as well. In fact, when you are applying for the visa, there isn't a charge that comes up at all, right? So it covers it completely, and any additional cost that you may need to spend to go to the UK for the specific reason for taking the Chevening Scholarship, that would be covered by Chevening. So it really is a fully funded scholarship. Now, for your other question about the specific numbers, so every year we do have a specific number. So we have what we call a specific number of candidates of places or scholarship places that can be given to a Jamaican, right? But the key thing to note is that that number is not set in stone and it's not standard, and it always increases every year. I think last year was the only year that that number did not increase, and that was because the restrictions around COVID. So what I can show you or kind of give you an example or kind of explain this a little bit more is that in 2017 there were 14 of us that got the scholarship. In 2016, how many of you guys got the scholarship, Monique?
21, and then there was a
21.
gentleman from the Bahamas. So we
Right.
kind of brought him into the fold as 22.
Okay, so 21 from Jamaica plus one from the Bahamas. In 2018, there were 23 Jamaicans who got the scholarship. In 2019, there were 19. In 2020, there were 13, and this year there were 17. But the indicative number that we get every year, the indicative allocations that we get every year, is usually a little bit lower than that, but it always increases. So the point that I always try to make to people is that there is enough space for you to apply for the scholarship. If we are sending off 23 people, why you can't in at the 23, right? So yes, there is a specific allocation, but that is not set in stone. And every year what we have what is called an upgrade of reserved candidates that eventually get the scholarship. So I hope that answers your question in a very long-winded way.
Yes. Sorry, can I just squeeze one more question in?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I'm from Jamaica, but I live in Antigua, right? Would I still be able to apply for the scholarship?
You would have to come back to Jamaica. Yes, you can still
Yeah, that's the
apply for the
plan. That's the
scholarship,
plan.
but you would have to come back to Jamaica, both to do the, well, you'd have to come back to Jamaica upon your completion, but yes.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Sure. All right. So I'm going to answer some of the questions in the chat box. So Arlene Hayes says, can you speak on the difference with the MBAs? Why is it that MBAs are the only programs with a financial cap? I actually have no reason. That is not a question I've actually thought of finding out, but I'm pretty sure the Chevening website has it there, Arlene. So if it is that, you can just check that out. Just kind of check out the section that talks about MBAs. Okay, Moni, do you want to answer that?
I was trying to help you out by saying that
Oh,
you're
okay.
answering it live.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much. So Aisha Barnett says, I already have a master's degree. I've already been accepted to do a master's degree in the UK on a conditional offer. This condition is based on securing paying a deposit. Will this affect the Chevening criteria that stipulates having an unconditional offer? So no, it doesn't affect you getting the Chevening scholarship. What you would need to do is to communicate with the institution that you have applied for a scholarship and that you won't be paying the deposit until you hear from the actual institution, right? So typically they do waive that that deposit fee, or they do waive that deposit fee if it is that you communicate that you have applied for a scholarship and that you're waiting for the announcement. So that is the best way to go about doing that, right? So just inform them that you've applied for a scholarship and that you're waiting for the results of that. Does the 2-year experience have to be consecutive? No, it does not have to be consecutive, but you have to have worked a completed total of 2,800 hours, which works out to about 35 to 40 hours a week for 2 years, right? What you'd find is that depending on the industry that you're in, you may amass that 2,800 hours within 1 year, depending on the work that you're doing, or within 2 years, and yes, you'll still be eligible. So it's based on a calculation. So it doesn't have to be that you're working from 2015 to 2017 straight. It could be that you've been working from 2014 to 2015 and then 2017 to 2018. But as long as you have the relevant working experience in that space, and it's key for you to know that it's the relevant working experience that counts, all right? What happens if you put a particular school and or program on your application and you did not end up applying for that school? Does it matter? Say you get accepted to another school that wasn't on your application. So in that case, which is why it's very important that you do the proper research before you actually submit those schools into the Chevening website. If it is that you have not been accepted to any of the schools that you put on the Chevening website, whether it's because them just never accept you or you just did not apply, you would not be able to take up the Chevening scholarship because you need a school to go to, right? If it is that you got accepted to another institution that was not listed on the Chevening, that was not listed on your Chevening application, then again, depending on when this happens, you probably get what you don't get, right? So during the interview stage, you may have the option, depending on on where you're and where you're doing your interview, whether it's in Jamaica or in another country. I know that for sure that in Jamaica you do get the opportunity to change your school during the interview, but beyond that you will not be able to change it. So if it is that you would like to add a school, the latest time that you could add and replace another school is during the interview. All right. Any other question here that you think I need to be touching on, Monique? Or Jovan, I'm just gonna jump back to the Q&A, the participant box, to see how many persons have.
Dervin, I think it's somebody raised a question about whether having received or being offered a scholarship, if you can defer. I think it's good to address that.
Okay, yes. So no, so you can only defer in the case of pregnancy. And if this webinar was not being recorded, I would have a cheeky come back to that, right? But it is being recorded, and I do plan to put it up on YouTube so that people can have access to it. But generally, the case of deferrals of the Chevening Scholarship is only done on if the person is pregnant. So if you're a man, you already get it. You already lose out there, so right. There have been situations where persons have requested a deferral for whatever the reason may be, and they were not, and the deferral was not granted, right? So deferrals are only typically held in the case of pregnancy.
Yes. And there's one more. Ren Duhaney says, how has COVID affected the Chevening Scholarship Program? I suspect in terms of the application, it's critical to know if there are any changes to that and perhaps with the schools.
Okay, so so I think for the most part, in terms of Chevening, they've made the application process or the whole process a little bit more flexible, right? So you don't have to be doing the in-person interviews anymore. You can also do them virtually. In terms of COVID protocols, Chevening does offer, as a part of your scholarship package, support towards whether you need to get COVID tests done. So these are all now part of the whole COVID Chevening experience. But in addition to the schools, of course, as has been happening globally, some classes are being held at 50% capacity, or a 50% in person or 50% virtual. So the experience has changed a bit, right? And this is the third year that we're going into the Chevening program with COVID. Like in 2019, 2019 was when the 2019 cohort, rather, sorry, they were the first one to actually experience Chevening during COVID. In 2020, the 2020 cohort, they had a really rough time because they were actually navigating that space during a lockdown. But as soon as the place free up, they went out, and they've now been exploring as much as they can. And of course, the new sets of the new cohort that went off to the UK are now currently in their quarantine. Some have come off their quarantine, but they're now going through that process of settling into the school, settling into their accommodations, and of course getting ready to live their Chevening journey. So there has been some changes, right? But for the most part, the network, the program tries to ensure that you remain connected and offers alternative ways of getting out there and enjoying that fulsome Chevening experience. But we are getting to a place now, as more people become vaccinated, as more vaccination mandates are happening, and as more as more protocols are put in place, so that by next year, hopefully, we'll be going to a relatively normal Chevening experience. Normal, putting that in quotes. All right, Monique.
Right. From the Q&A panel, quite a lot of people have been asking about them being currently in an undergrad program, and when their graduation will be, or when they will collect their undergraduate degree, and wondering if they would if they have to sit out in order to apply this year. So I think you need to clarify that kind of stuff.
All right, sure, yes. So if you have not graduated, so even if you're still in your last year, even if they say your last semester, or the semester is supposed to done in November, you would not be able to apply for Chevening in this cohort, because you needed to complete your degree completely, like done, scratch it off, dust it off, and everything, in order for you to apply for Chevening. So your best bet, if it is that you're in your last semester, or if you're in your last year, to apply for Chevening next year. All right. I'm going to take one more question from Nata Chamberlain. Naita, sorry.
Yes. Well, it's actually for all of you, but specifically for Monique, because I know she studied, remind me, Monique, you studied sustainability, right? In architecture, for your scholarship.
I studied environment and sustainable development, and because Naita knows me, we know each other. Because of my background in architecture, I applied architectural principles to the degree.
All right, so my question, I mean, it's to her, but I would say to all of you as well. Would you say that the knowledge that you were that you obtained from the scholarship, I know it will be extremely valuable. Were you able to apply those principles and the knowledge to the current profession you're in? Is it that, like, where you're working now, there's certain, did you find it's kind of limiting in according to like this wide vast of information that you got from the course itself? I don't know if you understand the question that I'm asking. Like for what Monique studied, I don't know if she was able to apply those principles and the stuff to her current profession right now. I don't know if I don't know if you have found any limitations in terms of that.
I think what Naita is asking is if learning about getting a degree on a global scale from an international university that covers global issues, if I'm able to apply them in Jamaica and specifically in my industry. Is that correct, Naita?
Yes.
Well, as I can say, I would be lying to you if I didn't say that it has been challenging, and but Chevening, the experience that I've gotten on the Chevening journey and in the UK, it has allowed me to adapt and move in different networks and circles where I am allowed to, or I'm not allowed, but I am able to make connections that I wouldn't be afforded before. And so yes, I've my professional prospects have opened. I guess you and I can have a conversation off air about that. But definitely, yes, I can't say that it has definitely worked in my benefit. And that's why I went for it in the first place. And Jovan, don't know if you have a personal.
Yeah, it definitely worked for me. I mean, I was a journalist before applying. And when I finished my program, I ended up working in the European Union, the office here in Jamaica. And my program at LSE was development management. So, we looked at political and economic issues, and all of that. We looked at international organizations, development aid, poverty, why countries are poor, why countries are rich, and so forth. And you would know that international organizations such as, the European Union and so forth that are in Jamaica, they come here saying that they're working with Jamaica to assist with development issues, but of course, in their own interest as well. And so I was able to work I got a job right after I finished LSE in the political and information section. So that was amazing because that was bringing together everything. I transitioned last year back into investigative journalism, which, and many of you may know, journalism takes in every single thing: physics, chemistry, bio, social studies, history, you name it, Spanish, whatever it is. So imagine now being in a space where I'm able to, depending on the story I'm pursuing or investigating, it can be anything. I'm investigating finance issues, I'm investigating, agricultural issues, diseases, all of these things. So it worked really beautiful. It has been working really well for me since I've been.
Okay, cool.
All right, and I just want to add to that here. So another role that I have the High Commission is that I'm the projects manager here, right? So I wear multiple hats, and so a part of that role involves crafting projects and programs, whether it's development projects or supporting another NGO, in sort of amplifying a development agenda in Jamaica. And my program was on development, social development practice. So it actually gave me the insight, the sort of additional eyes to be able to critically assess some of the programs that we're doing to ensure that they cater for the audiences that they should be catering for, right? So it really does depend on the program and the lens that you look through with your own program, and how you apply and adapt that and contextualize it to what you're doing. I also want to mention that in the UK, the universities take a very global approach at times when sharing and passing on knowledge. So it's not just this very paternalistic Western approach. So they take ideas and concepts and theories from the global South as well, many of which you can actually contextualize and condense and make it relevant to Jamaica's context, or the context of your own country. But what is also important is that the experience is not just limited to the classroom. There are things that you learn just by networking and being in that space where you're inundated with different cultures and different ways of doing things that you may not be aware of in Jamaica. But once you're able to just kind of see how different persons do things, that also provides you with that learning opportunity that you can make relevant to your own country. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm going to jump on to now to the next segment, but there are a lot of questions that I just wanted to just quickly run through. Monique Blake asks, will scholars need to be fully vaccinated? At the moment, that is not a requirement. Do all interview candidates in the Caribbean have to travel to Jamaica to be interviewed? No. You apply for the country that is relevant to you, and you do your interview there. So if you're from the Bahamas, you'll do your interview in the Bahamas with the Bahamian High Commission, or the British High Commission in Bahamas, or the British Embassy, depending on the country that you're in. So remember, this webinar is being held in Jamaica, so it's very Jamaica context specific, but the general lessons that we're talking about here can be relevant to wherever you're applying from. Aisha Barnett asks, does the specific master's program you apply for affect your chances of being shortlisted? No. We look for diverse areas of study. We actually try to make the program as diverse as possible. Diverse not only in the area that you want to do, but also in what it is that you're interested in. You know, what makes you a person, what makes you so diverse. I like to brag a lot that this year's cohort, we had 9 women and 8 men. The youngest was 25 and the oldest is 50. So the diversity range is not only based on what you do, but just to answer your question, the master's program that you choose to do does not affect your chances when you apply. All right, so we're gonna jump on now to the next segment because we do have a lot more to go through. So now let me try to figure out how to bring up back this PowerPoint presentation. All right, perfect. Now, this segment, we're going to be looking at finding the right program for you. And the reason why I included this in this presentation is because I know a lot of persons are typically daunted by the process of finding the right program, right? And also how to go about doing that and listing or recording those choices on the Chevening application website. So this section will allow you or introduce you to that, all right? Now, just a reminder, the applications for Chevening close on November 2nd, 2021 at 7 a.m. You must apply and be accepted to the university of your choice by July 2022. So whenever you want to apply, whenever you want to submit your application to the individual institution, that is up to you, but just make sure you get accepted by July of 2022. Now, you can find all information about eligibility and timelines and the online application system on the Chevening website at chevening.org/apply. And I really do suggest that if you have any questions, check out the Chevening website. I'm actually really blown away about how comprehensive it is. Me as a program coordinator for Jamaica that has access to a vast array of information about Chevening, I still go back to the Chevening website from time to time just because the information is readily there, right? All right, so let us say that you would like to find that you are interested in a specific program. How do you go about doing that, right? All right, so for this example, we're going to be focusing on whether you're interested in fashion design, right? So a good way to start, and again, this is just a method that I use. You don't have to use it. Some of you may already be interested in the school that you want to go to, but this is just a nice way to condense and to fine tune your search, right? So in this example, you as a prospective Chevening applicant is interested in doing fashion design. What I've realized works a lot is by just typing to Google UK master's degree plus fashion design, so or anything around that, right? Fashion design in the UK, fashion design master's degree in the UK, any sort of version of that sentence or that line you can put into Google, and it would then bring you to a list of possible options. Now, I want to mention this, right, that this segment is about giving you a guide to finding the right program for you. You don't need to use the approach, but I found this useful because it worked for me and it has worked for some others as well. Now, if you're interested in doing your master's degree, you must already know what you want to do. So this is the very first step. You're not going to start by saying master's degree in the UK. You must know what you want to do, right? You're not going to just get up and say you want to do something in climate change, or you want to do something around theology, or you want to do something around theater. You must already know as an individual what you want to do. So it should be easy for you to just simply type in sustainable development, or climate change, or nuclear technology, or artificial intelligence, or dementia studies, because you know that this is what exactly you want to do, right? Jova and Melissa, do you have any suggestions about how to, you know what? I'll ask you about that afterwards, right? Okay, so in this example, you as an applicant are interested in doing something around fashion design. So you type in UK master's degree plus fashion design. Once you do that, then you'll find a list of options appear. And typically you will find things that look something along the lines of this. Oh my God, is it working? Are you guys seeing a circle? Perfect, it works. So you see something along the lines of this, right? Where it basically condenses all the known or popular fashion master's degrees that, you know, are available at some UK universities, right? So these websites typically compile a list of universities offering your program or courses with very similar names. And it's very important that we note that as well, right? Because it does happen a lot where you might find two courses with the same title, but they're offering vastly different things, right? So let's say that you're interested in this website at www.mastersportal.com, and you click on it. Once you do that, why is this annotation thing? The annotation stuff work? Okay, there we go. Right, once you do that, then it brings you to a website layout that looks like this. Now, again, a reminder that not all the websites look like this, but you just want to find something that kind of gives you a list. It easily condenses this option for you so that you can see a list of universities that may offer things that you're interested in. So this is 67 fashion design masters in the UK. So you have fashion management at University of Lincoln. You have design, fashion, art direction at Manchester Metropolitan University. You also have creative direction and fashion at Southampton University. And you also have design, fashion at Manchester Metropolitan University. So it gives you a list of them. Let's say, for example, that we are interested in pursuing a degree in design, fashion, art direction, right? We're not just done this, so we need to actually do our investigation to ensure that this actually does what it says that it does, what I want it to do, right? What I want to achieve from it. So once you've identified the possible course that sounds like something that you want to do, a key thing that I always mention to people is that you need to read the overview. Now, it is important that you read the overview of the program you think you might be interested in. Because it is important to do clear research to ensure that the program outcomes align to what you want to do. Now, many programs have very similar names, but have very different teaching methodologies and outcome, right? So it's always important that you read the program outcome to ensure you're not caught by surprise, and then you're gonna find yourself in a problem later on. And I can talk about that because I made an error and I decided to apply for the Chevening Scholarship 2 days before the deadline, right? 2 days before the deadline, I was questioning whether I was the ideal candidate, not knowing that there really isn't an ideal candidate apart from somebody who wants to make a change and wants to be impactful. So I decided I knew what I wanted to do, and it was something around development and anthropology, right? How do we focus on people primarily into development? And I did a quick overview and I selected 3 schools. I selected UCL, I selected the School of African and Oriental Studies, and I also selected Birkbeck University. During the application process, I put all of those schools into Chevening, and when I was shortlisted, I decided to go back and look at the institutions, and I realized that one of the schools had a program called International Political Economy, and me didn't know it from right there, so I never did do it, because when I did international political economy at undergrad, I feel it about 3 times. And me never go a big foreign, go feel big course and make them have my name at Jamaica. I call it my name, I wrote in my field course at Jamaica. So I decided at that very moment that I was not going to be pursuing that I did not do the thorough research that is necessary to know that this program is actually a part of that. So it's important that you actually look at the program structure as well as the program outline to ensure that it narrows the focus so that you can know whether this program is right for you or not. So just to recap, we've chosen so far to go with design, fashion, art direction at Manchester Metropolitan University. So we decided to, all right, we read the overview and we realize, okay, this sounds like something me want to do. I like this. So we go to the Chevening website. And somewhere along the Chevening website, you will see this when you're logged in and you're going through the application process. It will ask you to then select the program and the school that you want to go to, right? So step 1 is you select, you go to the drop down and you select Manchester Metropolitan University. Then you select the program that you want to do, which is design, fashion, art direction. And then step 3, you're going to be asked to rank the school. So remember before that I told you that, similar to when you're leaving primary school after you do a GSAT or a common entrance, you'll then be asked to just, rank the schools that you want to go to. It's somewhat similar. So you're going to be ranking the school in terms of your first choice, your second choice, or your third choice. And so you rank them So this school prep would be, my number 1 choice, but then you have to go back and add your second and your third choice. And lastly, it's going to ask you if you've already applied. And this is what I mean, where it says that you don't have to have already applied for the school, but you need to know the school that you want to go to when you're applying for the Chevening Scholarship. So it's going to be asked you if you've already applied, and the options are there. So you can either say, yes, you have an unconditional offer. Yes, you have a conditional offer. No, you have not applied. Yes, you've applied and awaited a decision, and yes, you've applied and you've been rejected. Now, this does not affect your application or the success of you getting the scholarship at all, right? So we might ask you if you've applied to school during your interview, but it doesn't increase or lower your chances of actually getting the scholarship program, right? You just need to make sure that you do what you need to do to ensure that you're accepted to a school by July of next year. So the next section that we're going to be talking about is on writing your essays, which I know a lot of you guys have questions about. So I'm going to pause here again, just to go back to questions and to see if anybody have any questions based on the section that we just covered. So I see a few hands up, and I'm going to go with Valerie Black. All right, Valerie, you're on mute, so you can speak.
Hello, yes. Actually, my question was from the first section. I just wrote it in the question and answer. Should I still ask it now?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to know, first of all, if I would still be eligible if I complete my 2,800 hours during the application process. Like, I'm working and then I would have completed the hours by the time, I guess, my interview or something. Like I have some hours, but I don't have the entire 2,800. If during this year from now until, I guess, maybe an interview, will they still accept those hours that I complete during this process?
You know what? I've never actually come across a situation like that, and I can't quite say. But what I can tell you is that when you're on the Chevening application website and you're asked to put in how long you've been working at the place for, it's going to also ask you for the hours that you've been working, and that would actually automatically calculate the number of hours that you have, right? And then you can decide going forward. But it's depending on how long you put in to the actual in the actual application that will determine your hours.
Okay.
All right.
My second question is, what if most of my experiences are actually volunteer experiences, but they differ from my program of study? It could be indirectly linked, but they're not the same.
Okay, so I'm glad that you mentioned that they're indirectly linked, because that indirect link sometimes is often very important. First thing is that if you're doing voluntary experience, then that is considered work. So ensure that you're able to calculate that as well and record that. So I think someone had asked a question about the requirement for work. So again, you have to have 2 years work experience, and and that 2 years work experience can be paid, unpaid internships, and voluntary experience, right? So we always say that it's important that you have sufficient experience in the area that you're interested in pursuing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be working directly in this space, but you must have sufficient knowledge, whether it's indirect, of the area, the interest that you have, so that it can be justified, that you can justify and speak about it confidently, right? And I give the example of a teacher who's teaching English at a high school may choose to apply for public administration or something around gender and education, right? So if it is that they do something around public administration, they have not been working in public administration, so to speak, but by virtue of being a teacher, they have seen the administrative processes that can sometimes be hindered because of poor public administration processes, and therefore they decide then to pursue a degree in public administration. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
All right.
Thank you. My final question, I'm so sorry, is do you know what influences the fluctuation of scholarship recipients? Personally, I've seen that. I know you made the example of how many people got the scholarships from your year to Miss Monique's year and Mr. Jovan's year. But I know that where I'm from, like only 3 people got it last year, and before that it was like 5 people. And then before that we had like way more people. But I noticed that this year, well, the most recent year, they only had like 3 recipients. But I know other people applied and they didn't get it. So what would influence such a small number of scholarship recipients?
Okay, so there are a number of things that could influence that, right? And it could just be the countries. Some countries generally get more applications than others. And that is because of a development ranking, so to speak. And that's the best way that I can put that. So some countries do get more scholars. But if we're speaking just individual countries and what can determine what increases or decreases the number of scholarship each year, could be funding availability, right? That's one option. Also, the number of candidates they have on the reserved list, right? So let's say that we have space for 10 scholars. We know that our allocation each for 2022, for example, is 10. During our interview, we would have selected those 10 persons, but because of how the scholarship is now operating, we always know that we're going to have a significant more number of persons who meet the criteria to get the scholarship based on their interview and based on what they say, but would not fall into the 10. So they will then be put in a category called the reserved candidates, right? And that could be 5, that could be any number. Every year that number might increase or decrease depending on the actual post or the actual place that is doing the interviews. So we'll have the 10, but we may have 5 persons on reserve in 1 year, or 7 persons on reserve in another year, or even 10 persons on reserve in another year. And so if a funding becomes available, there's now a ranking system that then selects who is going to be the next one to be put in that category. So it could range based on the example that I just gave, from moving from 10 to 15 or 10 to 13 or 10 to 20, but depending on funding, availability, and space. I
Okay.
hope that answers your question as well.
Good
I've been trying my
question.
best to be as clear as possible, and also not to put me in any problem. All right. Who is next that had a question? Evine Hilton?
It's Avion.
Avian. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
know that you may have said it earlier, but just to see clarity, the master's program has to be in the UK.
Yes.
So,
Anywhere in the United Kingdom, which
okay.
includes Wales, England, Scotland, and one of the Irelands. Is it Northern Ireland?
Northern Ireland
And Northern Ireland, yes.
gets me all the time.
Yes.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Sure, no problem. All right, Sherwin Tucker.
Yes, good evening.
Yes.
Could you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'm currently working right now. It's my 6.5 year at the institution where I work, and I've just started applying to a university in the United Kingdom, which is the University of Central Lancashire.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been going through the Chevening Scholarship to basically to find out which institution is linked to the scholarship. So I had to go through that in order to apply. So, but my difficulty is that I might need help in applying to university, and then I might need step-by-step instructions on after applying. Then I would have to need help in applying to the Chevening Scholarship as well. So is there any way I can get any help in doing the step-by-step process? Is there anyone I can contact to help with that?
Actually, so unfortunately, no, there's not, we don't actually have a facility that guides persons through the application process, but there is something that you mentioned that I wanted to say. When you don't, you don't have to be finding whether a university is linked to Chevening, right?
Okay.
So remember, what Chevening markets is that study at one of the UK's, global universities. They don't give a number of what university that you can apply to, and they don't tell you what university you can apply to, right? You looking based on the example that I just gave, that was a random Google search that showed Manchester Metropolitan
Yeah, I saw
University.
that.
And I just went on the Chevening website and just put in Manchester Metropolitan University, right?
Okay.
So it's just about you finding the right school or finding the right program, and then going to the Chevening website and putting that in using the drop down options. What I would also mention is that if it is that you don't see a school there, there's an option for you to add or request information regarding this school, right? But just for the general concern that you have, this presentation, right, is really to facilitate you applying for the Chevening Scholarship. The individual universities have their own way of going through the application process, but you don't necessarily need support for that, right? And if you go on the Chevening website, which I recommend that everybody do, just to go through what the application looks like, you actually see that it's really simple, right? And the purpose of this is to even simplify it even more. Okay.
Well, one of the issues that while going through it, I'm going through the process of applying, and I'm seeing a couple of the questions which they ask about subjects. Now, seeing that that they are asking about the subjects that I have done regarding the postgraduate program there, I'm thinking probably why would they be asking about subjects, and would it not be just for the degree itself?
Okay, so who is asking for subject? The Chevening website?
No, the institution which I am applying to right now.
Right. So if you're applying, and my only it really does depend on the program that you're applying to and also the institution. Some institutions have their own requirements, right? So if it is that they ask you for the subjects, they could be referring to your undergraduate degree and the subjects that you did for your undergraduate degree, where they're just asking for the degree in total or just asking for the programs under the degree. And so you would have already had that information to give them.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Sherwin. Tamika, I'm gonna allow you to speak now.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much. Actually, I just really wanted to ask me the contact information because I've been putting it in the group, but no response. I haven't heard the question read. Just to find out if we have any questions after this webinar, if there's any local contact number that we can receive so we can get in touch with anyone with any further challenges.
Okay. So the Chevening website is the go-to if it is that you have any sort of questions regarding the website, because chances are I'll be giving you information from that. But I'm about to type the email. No, it's chevening.jamaica@fcdo.gov.uk. I just put it in the chat box. So if it is that you have any questions, you can always send an email there. But just to be mindful that the information is usually very accessible on the Chevening website for any questions that you may have. But if it is that you're not finding the question or not finding the answer to the question that you have, you can just send an email to the email that I just typed in the box. Did you see it?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. All right, Monique, Jovan, do you see any questions that that I'm missing that I should be answering? Okay, so Claudine Reed asks, do you have to choose a master's program related to your BHC? For instance, if you did business as, your bachelor's degree, but want to do fashion as your MSc, is there a hindrance or a red flag? And no, there is not a red flag or an hindrance. Many people do, transition from their undergraduate degree to their master's degree based on their own experience or based on their own working experience, right? So your undergraduate degree really no matter to you, right? And it doesn't have to be completely aligned. You just need to have it, right? You just need to have it because you need to do it. You need an undergrad for your master's, right? So that's the key thing. However, if it is that you are interested in doing fashion, you will be asked questions about the fashion industry or questions along the lines of your area of interest. And if you're not able to answer them, it means that you don't have the sufficient knowledge or the experience that we're looking for when we generally, offer the Chevening Scholarship. So you can be interested in anything that you want to do, right? But you must have sufficient knowledge and experience in that space in order to provide a convincing argument as to why what you're interested in doing is important and why you should be given the scholarship. All right, Alex, thanks so much. By the way, there's another one of our Chevening scholars here, Alex Williams, who has been graciously responding to questions. Alex, I should probably bring you up here. Yes, the recording will be shared. It will be shared on our YouTube page and also via email. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Keisha Johnson to speak. Keisha, your
Hello, good evening, everyone. I got to the interview stage, but I was not selected. I'm thinking in my mind, perhaps I didn't do well at the interview. I'm not sure if you can speak to that or if there are any tips available.
Okay, so no, I'm not able to speak to that. I do remember your name though, and I do see a number of persons here who actually have applied for the Chevening Scholarship, and some of them were shortlisted, and some of some weren't, and some weren't successful. Now, remember, like what I mentioned, that we have even though the numbers fluctuated, how many persons we award a scholarship each year, that number is usually significantly less than the number of persons who apply. Last year we had 600 plus applications, and also the number of persons who are shortlisted. This year we shortlisted 50 persons for an interview, right? And at the time we only had space for 12. So it's not necessarily to say that your application was not good. It just more so to speak to how others may have responded or did well during their interview, that kind of put them over the edge beyond others. But what I always say is that being shortlisted out of a cohort or out of a group of 600 and plus applications to be narrowed down to 50 is an achievement in and of itself. But in terms of responding to how you go about during the interview, the next segment where we talk about the essays is going to give you a little bit of overview on how to go about responding to the questions, but using how you respond to those questions as a guide to how you do in the actual interview. All right. So thank you, Keisha, and I'll take one more question before we jump to the next person, and that's Melanie D. Hey, Melanie. Melanie, are you there? Hey, Melanie, we're not hearing you. All right, so I'm gonna jump to somebody else. Rory. All right, Rory, you can speak now.
All right, yes, thanks for selecting me. So my question is, I remember hearing in the past about there being like how after the experience, you're tied to Jamaica to 1 year. So if you could just expound on that, and how does that affect persons who are self-employed?
Okay, so I think the word tie is a very strong, very strong word. But yes, there is a 2-year bond to Chevening. I think I might have buried the lead with that. I should have mentioned that from the start. But yes, after you get the Chevening Scholarship, you are required to return to your home country and contribute, which you said that you would have done anyway in your application, for at least 2 years. That doesn't mean that if you're self-employed, if it is that you can't leave the country to go to travel elsewhere for short periods, but your place of residence should be Jamaica for 2 years.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right. Tafari, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, you're hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. My question, two questions, two part. If you're working in the government sector, are you able to apply? And will you get leave of absence if to travel to London? If anybody have gone through that experience?
Okay, so we receive a number of government of public sector workers every year. This year I think we had 3 persons who are actually a part of the public sector who received the scholarship. Some have been able to successfully get study leave, and it's not only for government workers but others, depending on their company that they work with, also provide study leave. But whether or not you are given study leave, to be honest, it really depends on the institution that you work for. And so it's important that you have that conversation with them. But what I can say, it is possible and it has been done.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to just jump into the last section here because I know this is what people have been waiting for, and it's about the essays. So let me find another way now again to bring up this. To share the PowerPoint screen. Okay, so Jovan, Monique, And Alex, by the way, Alex, you want to quickly introduce yourself? I know I kind of put you on the spot by adding you as a panel without other panelists without even mentioning from beforehand, but you owe me from last year. So please go ahead.
Right, that's all right. So good night, everyone. So I'm Alex Williams. I'm one of the recipients of the Chevening Scholarship in 2018, and I studied finance at King's College London. And that program consisted of, for example, a lot of financial engineering, corporate banking, stocks and securities, and so forth. My background is I'm a stallion for one. So the Taylorites that I hear, just representing them, I did a first degree in economics, and I also did a postgraduate in economics at the University of West Indies. So in total, I have 3 degrees. So persons normally ask me why 3 degrees? Well, it was a change of scenery. And at the time I wanted to contribute to Jamaica's financial sector in terms of what I see around me in the developed countries. And I decided that, you know, this is an opportunity for me to embark on a new journey and contribute back to society. So that's how I decided to just apply for the Chevening. So it's not only for my interest, but to give back to society.
All right, perfect. And you were perfectly fine with coming back and staying for your 2 years, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Went
All
by
right.
really fast, actually.
It did. It really does. It really does go by quickly. So we're going to be getting into the meat of the matter now, which is writing the essays. So I'm going to ask the three of you to give your main points before I jump into it. What are some of the key advice you would give to persons who, to consider when they're writing their applications? Jovan, you read some of the applications this year, and I believe you're on some of the panels. So tell us, what would you say? What would you say are some of the main points that you'd want to raise?
Thanks, Dervin. There are several things. One, you have to be very, very clear. I know that most persons are applying for Chevening, they're involved in a ton of things. So if you're writing about leadership, if you're writing about networking and so forth, it's all good and well. But you have to pick the 3 and 4 strongest things you believe that will, I don't like to use the word, but sell yourself, to advocate for yourself. I think that's a better way to put it. The 4 things that when you're able to identify that, because sometimes when I read the essays, you get the person just lumping everything, all of your achievements. It's like a resume dump. So you take your resume and you just throw everything there. And it doesn't really work that way, because what Chevening are looking for, they're looking for coherency, consistency. And if you're able to pinpoint those 3, 4 things that best represent you and the opportunity you're seeking, then they best serve you. So it's easy to, and it's more targeted, you communicate better, your essays read better, they flow better, and we're able to follow your path, because in the end, we're gonna look at your leadership, your networking and everything to see how are you using those spaces. And it's easier when you're able to identify the specific things and make them reference. The other thing I would talk about, don't be afraid to speak about your involvement in a project. Leadership, for example. What was your role? Yes, we know that you worked in a team, and we know that everybody's good, and you're trying to say that it was a teamwork and everything, but you are applying, not the team. So we want to hear what your role was, what did you achieve, what was achieved, and what was your role in achieving the results. And that's important. I'll leave it there for now.
All right. Monique, what are your suggestions? What are your tips?
My tips are to be as natural as possible. As Jovan said, don't be afraid to talk about your contributions to society, to your organization, to your family. This is your opportunity to let the persons reading your application know who you are and what you plan to achieve with this degree and how you plan to come back and make a difference with the degree. So be as natural and as genuine as possible. When I applied for Chevening, that was my strategy, and I think it worked in my favor because at the time, not a lot of private sector persons were getting this degree. Worse in a creative industry like mine. So be as natural as possible, I think, would be my suggestion.
All right, thank you. And Alex.
Oh, wait, I have another one, sorry. And some people, whether they're used to writing essays or not, never think about how they're writing the essay for the reader. Write for the reader. Write your essay, read it over, give it to people who have no idea what you're talking about, to make sure that there's a consistency and fluidity that Jovan mentioned. You know, you want to critique your essay from the point of view of the reader. Thanks.
All right, Alex.
It's kind of hard to actually improve on what Monique and Jovan said, but I would tell the attendees my personal experience with writing the essays. So for one, when I was writing the essays, as Monique said, I asked persons to critique it, for one, because I may be well, or I can explain myself in finance, but a person from outside finance may not understand it. So you have to be careful of who you're writing the essays to. Some person may not be well knowledgeable about finance, so you try to keep it as simple as possible. The other thing is try to have a human touch to it. For example, Chevening, well, yeah, you know you're going out there to study, but at the same time, Chevening wants persons who are well-balanced or well-rounded, should I say. So it's not all about books. So when I was applying, I mentioned one of the things that I want to do is to watch a Chelsea football game, because Chelsea is my favorite football team. So there's a human touch or a human element to it. So you're not just about, I'm just wanted there to get a degree. No, there's more that the UK has to offer. And as well as you want to make sure that you are, what you're studying helps back to society. So I saw a question about what if, for example, the thing that you want to study is not related to your initial degree. Chevening really wants to know how you can actually transform what you have or what you have learned to society itself, how well we can improve a society based on what you have learned. Another tip, I'm not sure if Monique or Jovan mentioned this, one of the tricks that I used was that I reached out to past Chevening scholars to help with my interview, in the sense that I will give them my essays, and from there they will quiz me as like, because in the interview you're gonna be asked about what you wrote in the essays. So for me, I practice a lot in terms of giving person my essays, and they try to do a mock interview. So if you don't know what you write in the essay, it's gonna show up in the interview. So that's a tip. Make sure you know what you're writing. It's really you who is writing the essays, and not someone who is helping you writing it, because they want to know who is behind the pen and the paper, or who's behind the screen. So that's my tip for the essays.
All right, thank you so much for mentioning that part, Alex. By the way, we know when somebody else writes an application, as soon as an open amount to do the interview, somebody else write this, and it happened. It happened this year, and it's a very unkind thing, I would say, to do as an individual, to decide that you're going to have someone write your applications for you, because then when you're asked about the things that are said on your application or in your essays during the interview, and you cannot answer them, it really can be a very frustrating experience for the panelists who are interviewing you, who are actually really excited to interview every individual person and see what they could come with. But it also, in my head, it's like, shame. So don't feel shame. Don't shame yourself by doing that, right? So don't do that. So my tips, and we're gonna get into it. No, use the word count wisely. You have 500 words. You have up to 500 words per essay. Don't write 100 words if you cannot find more than 200 words to write about your own self. Then that means you don't have enough experience and you go flop, right? So use up the word count to really sell yourself, as Jovan said. Don't waste your time with quotes. We don't care for them, and they do not help your essay at all. Don't use the quotes. Don't use the, we want to be the future. Be the future you want to see. Stop using it. Everybody use it, and it doesn't make you stand out, right? So don't use the quotes. Focus on what you've done when providing examples. Big up yourself. So we take a very competency-based approach when we're answering, when we're asking these questions. It's about what you have done. So tell us about a time where you displayed leadership and influence, right? You do it, so you're supposed to can talk about it. So big up yourself. There's a culture I think there's a Jamaican culture, and it might happen in other cultures as well, where we don't really like to brag. We don't really like to amplify the things that we do, but do it. You apply for big scholarship, for go a big foreign, for get big master's degree, for come back and just do big work and make all of the big money. Big up yourself, brag about the things that you have done, right? Keep a flow. Jovan mentioned this. Keep a flow. So you should be consistent throughout the essays. We shouldn't get to the last essay to find out exactly what it is that you want to do, right? And lastly, use examples from your professional experience or examples that link clearly to what you're interested in doing. Examples from your university or high school raises questions about whether you have sufficient experience. Now, we're gonna jump into the big thing. Now, I want to mention that on the Chevening website, again, because it's very comprehensive, there is a section called the Reading Committee Assessment. And this is a committee of people who read the applications from every year, and they give feedback based on the applications that they receive every year, and they break down the feedback based on the essay section, and it gives really cool pointers about how to go about writing a very winning essay. So the first essay, let's just go back here, is about leadership and influencing, right? And it talks about explain leadership and influencing qualities using clear examples. The second essay is about networking, and it says think about how you build a professional network and establish links in the UK. Third one is about your studying in the UK. Explain how your experience is relevant to your chosen courses, and how those choices will allow you to achieve your career goals. And lastly, the last essay is on your career plan. Explain what your short and long-term goals are and how you will achieve them and how they will benefit your home country. All right, very clear. So it's four essays, and these are the same four essays are the same four questions that we ask you if you are shortlisted for an interview. So the same something, right? So there's a level of consistency that goes forward. So tips for writing the essay, and we're gonna start first with leadership and influencing. Now I think this is the left of my screen. So the left of your screen, you see where it says the reviews from the 2021 application. So that's the application period that just ended, not this current one. So people who have just left, these are the reviews from that application period and the suggestions that the reading committee has given, right? So it says the best scoring applicants demonstrated clear examples of leadership and influencing with concrete results. So here are the recommendations for when you are writing your essays. Take a STAR approach. So you look at the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So take a STAR approach to help refine your responses. Applicants should focus less on the we and team in this answer and place greater emphasis on their individual contribution. That's literally what Jovan just said. Examples require more focus in terms of how you lead, the results of your leadership, and how that may have a long-term impact on your professional development. Now, to the right part of your screen at the very top, so we have two options here about how to go about, two examples about how to go about responding to this question. One that is good and one that's not so good. Let's start with the one that's not so good. So let's say that in answering the leadership and influencing question, this is how the individual responds. I worked as a customer service agent for 3 years at the British High Commission, after which I was promoted to senior human resource manager, where I managed a team of 30 persons to oversee the human resource management policy. Now, in the negatives of this is that it's so short and it doesn't really say or really share much other than the fact that you got a big title. And to be honest, we're not afraid of title. I just want to mention that a lot of people actually do come in as CEOs. They apply for Chevening as CEOs. They apply for Chevening as general managers. They apply for Chevening with one only for a big title. But the truth is they have not been able to demonstrate leadership and influencing qualities. And that is often their downfall. I would like to say that Chevening is a very relatable and practical and relevant scholarship that looks beyond having a big title, which is why when you're writing your essays, don't talk about how you're having these leadership positions, but talk about how you as a person demonstrate leadership, right? So in that example, the person doesn't really show what they've done. They've been focusing and the fact that they were promoted within 3 years to the human resource manager, and we don't quite understand exactly why that is. Now, the response below kind of gives a clearer and a better way of responding to this question, right? So it says, I worked as a customer service agent for 3 years at the British High Commission. During this time, I continued to exceed customer and company expectations by going above and beyond. After 3 years, I was promoted to human resource manager, an accomplishment that has never been achieved at the institution. During my time as manager, I was made aware of the challenges regarding how the company managed the welfare of its staff, and I ventured to fix this. I persuaded my superiors to allow me to get a team of 30 persons to oversee the human resource management policy reform, which would only reflect positively on the organization and its staff in the long term. Now, this kind of give a little bit more detail about how you go about responding to that question, and it really does to some extent take the STAR approach. Now, granted, this is a PowerPoint presentation and this is far less than 500 words. So you want to fill in those blanks by giving a little bit more details. But the reason why this one is better is that it provides, it gives a reason as to why you were promoted. It just shows say you go above and beyond. You do proper work. You're really bright. You're good at what you do. So you were giving that promotion. And it also kind of underscored again that you're doing your thing because that was the first time it has ever been achieved at the company. Another thing here is that you saw a problem and you aimed to fix it, and therefore you are showing initiatives. A quick tip in responding to this question about leadership and influencing is knowing what the qualities of a leader are and making sure that your examples fit those qualities. And if you Google, qualities of a leader, taking initiative is going to be one thing that must come up, right? You're going to see that wearable. And so you'd want to then find an example that shows where you took initiative, right? So you see, you deconstruct the word leader to not just be a title, but a way of operating, right? So this person took initiative. They saw that there was a problem with how the company was managing the welfare of its staff. And so them decided to no longer something need for go on to make a change that, right? So they took initiative, and they're showing the example of them taking initiative in this response. They're also showing that they're able to influence, and that is very important. A lot of people, a lot of persons, when responding to this essay, focus a lot on the leadership and not look at the influence. And if you show that you have influence, right? Show how you have influence and the spaces that you have influence in. And of course, end the result with seeing the bigger picture. So this person said that it would only positively impact the organization and the staff in the long run. So this is a quick about how to go about responding to the question about leadership and influencing. So we're going to go to the next one now, which is networking. Okay, so networking and writing the essays. So based on the reading committee assessments last year, they said strong applicants in this section use specific examples of their own networks, describing unique and diverse ways of maintaining networks, and discussed how they facilitate networking. Now, the key point here is that it's not about who you know and how many contacts you have, but how you created that network and how you maintain the network. A lot of people feel as though that because they have friends in high places that makes them good at networking. And again, I want to mention, and I always make these points not to try to be funny, but to just make it clear that you can for example, when people submit their references, they like to get references from very distinguished people with very nice titles. No one cares, right? That does not affect your application. That does not put you above someone who perhaps doesn't have a reference from someone in a high position, because we want to know what that individual is capable of doing. The references are important, but the title behind that reference does not make your application stronger or makes it weaker. The point here is you. What have you been doing and how you use that network? So let's go to how not to respond to this question. And here's here's a response that is not necessarily acceptable. The person says, I'm well known in my community. I have worked with key decision makers in Jamaica and many persons in the legal fraternity. I will continue to use my access to them to bring about change. Now, this doesn't really say anything about, apart from the fact that you're well known in your community. And the Jamaican in me, whenever I see people write things like this, my response is, so why your name there road? That is what comes to mind, right? So you need to be a little bit more clear about how it is that you're known, because simply saying that you're well known doesn't really do anything for me. It just means that you're popular, right? But are you using that popularity for your own benefit? Are you using that popularity to achieve a bigger goal? These are the key things. So you don't want to be writing your essays to leave the person who is reading the essays to be asking a number of questions. It also shows that you may have networks, but doesn't show how you build or how you leverage and sustain those networks. So let's look at a better way of responding to this question. Because of the work I've done in building peace in my community and mobilizing persons to work together, I have become well known and well connected. These connections have allowed me to influence key stakeholders to support many of my initiatives. Because of this, my work was recognized by the local MP, and I was able to pull on his status to encourage other key parties in my community to act. I wish to continue this type of network when I'm in the UK, particularly with the wider Chevening network, many of whom are working in areas of peace building in their own countries, and this will allow me to learn from them, and in return, they can learn from me. Now, the positives about that second response is that it clearly shown how you've networked and how you build an impressive network. Now, what is important for me, or what I appreciate in this response, is that they explained how it is that they were able to have the local MP as a part of their network, but also they're showing that yet this person is not just a part of my network. I've been able to pull on their status in order to achieve a bigger outcome, right? So seeing beyond just the individual, but also, the wider context, seeing the bigger picture, if you will, right? Now, it clearly shows that you're able to leverage that network and, of course, maintain the key relationships. So just be mindful of this. And I also want to mention that you don't have to have such a grand response. You don't have to have, you don't have to say that you've networked with, a local MP or a prime minister or whoever, but whatever you give in that example must be related generally to an area within your professional experience and how you're able to build or how you're able to build and leverage that network to achieve a bigger outcome, right? But it doesn't, the status of the person doesn't really matter, right? It's about how you build and maintain that network. Now, studying in the UK, writing the essays, right? Now, in responding to this, the reading committee has says that the strongest answers to this question have a clear focus on the study outcomes with evidence of research at the university, at the institution, and at the course level. Applicants who answer this question do so by having distinct paragraphs discussing their courses. This is very key. If it is that you've chosen 3 courses, we need to know exactly why you've chosen those courses. And if you're unable to explain why you've chosen those schools and why you've chosen those courses, it means that you're not as aware about what it is that you want to do and why you've chosen those courses. Because if it is that you chose, let's say when I social development practice at UCL, I was able to articulate why this program was the best one for me, right? Because of what I wanted to achieve and how this course is going to relate to that, to me achieving that goal. And so you want to do that for every, for each of the institutions. That's the best way, that's a good way to go about doing it. But also show research. What about the lecturers that brought you to that institution? What about the institution itself that, that made you feel, that you're drawn to this institution? For example, UCL, the Bartlett Institution, is actually one of the top departments in the world around sustainable development. That shows clear research. I don't know about UCL and I don't know about King's College, but I know that UCL and Monique wanted to say something.
Yes, I was saying that UCL and King's College have a strong rivalry. I'm not sure persons know that, but yes.
I'm very
When,
much
when I
aware
went to
of
King's, I
that.
was told that there's a strong rivalry between UCL and King's.
Oh yes, there's a very strong one. So be clear and show that you've done your research as to why you've chosen those universities and why you've also chosen those courses. And you can finish up by just talking about the learning experience that you could have just by being in the UK alone, right? So Chevening is not just about learning within the classroom, it's about learning generally, and how being in a new environment can actually enable you to see things differently. People frequently like to talk about, they're looking forward to being in a diverse culture. And just to mention, if you're going to say that, just know that every other person is going to be saying that in their application as well. Pinpoint what it is about the diversity that makes you feel like this is the place that you want to be. For example, I was interested in doing development, but focusing on how vulnerable populations or key populations can be incorporated into development policies and practices. And now being in a place like the United Kingdom and specifically London that was so very diverse and very multicultural, it was interesting for me to see how local governments were able to implement policies that cater to those different religions and those different groups of people. And so that's one way of articulating clearly how being in a diverse and multicultural society helps. But simply saying that you're being in a diverse society is not gonna strengthen, or is not gonna strengthen your application. In fact, you might just get one SOSA mark for that, right? So you don't want to be the person to just get a SOSA mark. Do your research. And here's how you don't answer this question. Applicants frequently do not specify their chosen university or demonstrate an awareness of the key details within their course. Applicants who had applied for 3 very diverse courses or subjects did not inspire confidence in their research into courses and were frequently unable to give clear and coherent reasons for these choices. While many showed a cursory or better than cursory knowledge of their chosen course and university, often the details given in this read like a cut and paste from the university's promotional material rather than real engagement with subject or course detail. I want to mention that second bullet point where it talks about diverse courses. Do not fall into the trap of applying to 3 schools, doing 3 vastly different things, and then not being able to explain why it is that you've chosen those very vastly things. And an easy way to explain this is by saying that you're an English teacher. You're applying to 3 schools. One of them is, literature, for example. You want to do a master's in literature. You want to do another master's in English. And then the third course is you want to do a master's in science. How does that fall in? That's a very different area of study. So what you should always aim to do is that be consistent in the courses that you're doing. Yes, you can apply to 3 different institutions. They might not all have the same name, but whatever it is that you're interested in doing, those courses will align to it. And I'll use an example again of Keneal Peart. He's one of this year's Chevening Scholars. He's going to do artificial intelligence. He's going to University of Southampton, and the program that he'll be doing at University of Southampton is artificial intelligence. But one of his 3 choices was to go to UCL and to do machine learning. Now, machine learning and artificial intelligence are very different names, but they're very similar in what it is that you want to achieve, right? So, for example, I did social development practice at the University College London, but one of my choices was international development studies. Very different titles, but they achieve generally what it is that I was interested in achieving. So just be mindful of that and do not fall into the trap of simply saying that you're going to apply for all sorts of things just for try a look, because it's not gonna work, right? And lastly, let us look at the career path. Now, based on the committee's assessment, this is the best way to respond to the question. The strongest responses tended to be based on an outline of a specific concrete goal, which usually therefore means more convincing and more achievable. It means that you know what you want to achieve. So you want to be prime minister, so you've detailed very clearly what you're going to do, why you're going to get this master's scholarship. This is a whole story that you're telling, right? So it starts from the top to the end. But in responding to the career question, your goal is to be prime minister. You know that you're going to get this degree in politics. You're going to come back. You're probably going to continue working in your community with the intention of building partnerships with, you know, with local government, and eventually becoming a member of an official party, and eventually doing something, right? So you can have very ambitious goals, but they must be practical in how you're explaining them. You can't come back from Jamaica and in 2 years be prime minister. And that's something no go so, nothing can go so, right? So just be very clear and detailed, and be very practical and reasonable about how it is that you want to go about applying, about how it is that you want to go about writing and, you know, explaining your career path. Now, how to not respond to this question. Applicants often list future aims in relation to their careers, and some explored realistic next steps in depth, but most did not give a strong rationale, which made a potentially clear career path unconvincing. Many applicants illustrated a desire to do a PhD in the post-study section, and this is ambitious and realistic, but it wasn't always a convincing career goal. That is to say, it needed to be backed up with reasons why they wanted to pursue research work, and how it plays into how it plays a part in their longer term ambitions. Now, the career paths were often too poorly developed, and it was not possible to discern how a Chevening Scholarship would benefit. And again, this is when persons just decide that they have a goal, and they're going to just say that this is their goal, but they don't quite explain it. And if it is that you're not able to explain, or you're not able to visualize your career path and the steps that you need to take, it means that you may not be attuned to what is required to achieve the very ambitious goals that you have. It's not a downfall for you, or for the applicant. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you need to be a bit more clear, or think deeply about it, about what it is that you want to be, what it is that you want to do, and how you're going to get there. And to be honest, sometimes it may mean going back to your place of employment, the place that you left before you applied for Chevening. Just going back there and kind of build up your network from there, or kind of start your progression to your future goals from there, right? So it's about being practical and very clear. Now, I have come to the end of this SS section completely. I'm actually getting tongue-tied now. So I'm going to go back to the Q&As and provide persons with the opportunity to ask questions again. So we have Yolande Fender. You can ask your question. You're on mute. All right, she's not there. Janine.
Hello, good night.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, you mentioned that you can choose 3 courses or 3 programs or 3 universities. And I wanted to know, for example, like myself, I know exactly which university I'd like to go to, but there are 3 programs at that university I have interest. So can I choose one university and the 3 programs at that university?
You can, as long as there's a clear explanation as to why it is that these 3 programs align to what you want to do. But be very mindful. Chances are, if you get rejected for one, at a school you get rejected from, right? But you can generally you know, apply to one institution to do 3 programs.
Okay, all right, thank you. Because I just have an idea of exactly what I want, and I see that there's another university that has that program, but to find a 3rd university with that program, it's not possible. So I just wanted to have an idea.
All right, sure. But yes, generally you can choose 2 universities and 3 programs, you know, across the universities, or you can choose 1 and 3 programs across it. All right, but just be mindful of the risks with doing that.
Okay,
sorry, Dervin.
thank you so much.
I mean, touching on the applications, I just remember something. I'm not sure if you had mentioned it because I came on late, but I know you mentioned the ranking of the schools when a person is applying. When I was applying, they were saying that, you know, you have the Chess High School where you're putting your hat out to get into, and then you have the insurance school. So I'm not sure if you delve into that information with the prospective applicants in terms of the ranking of schools and the reason behind it. Oh, you have, okay. All right.
All right, Colleen Dawkins, you're up next. Hi, Colleen. Hello. All right, so Wendy Miller, you can go up next.
I have no questions at this time. I came in a little bit late.
Okay.
I'm just listening. There is hope because I think I'm one of the more senior persons here. I'm 55. Just completed my first degree. The paper isn't, the ink hasn't even dried on it as yet. So, and Camille is a friend of my daughter's who passed away. And she's one of the persons that has motivated me to go back to school. And my degree is actually in her honor.
Well, I suggest, Wendy, that you apply, that you continue that progression. You said that you just joined on, so you probably would have missed the video that we did earlier. One of our scholars from this year, actually, Deborah Calendar, is a 50-year-old who decided that, you know, she's not done yet. So she get her master's and she go come back and do what she needs to do, right? So I'm really motivated by hearing that, you know, you don't see an end in sight as yet, and I encourage you to apply for the scholarship.
Thank you. I believe in lifelong learning.
Yes, of course. All right, let us see who is next. Ren Duhaney.
Good night. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is really career plan. I'm just gonna be specific. So I want to do a master's in cybersecurity, and if I get the master's and the scholarship and I come back to Jamaica, I would be able to work in probably 3 different organizations. Is mentioning all 3 organizations sounding wishy-washy, or, you know, is that safe? Like, because I mean, I'd come back and then apply. So how does that look?
I think it makes sense to you can mention the place that you want to go and you want to work at, or the place that you're considering. But I think what would help is in your explanation as to why it is that you want to go to this place and why this place is the best place for you to achieve what you want to achieve, right? So yes, you can mention the possible places that you want to work, and the impact but it's about the reason why you want to go to these places.
All 3 places would have the impact that I want to have. So I would want to work at either JCERT. So I'd want to do the degree focusing on incident response, or I'd work at MOCA to, again, incident response and also like help with accountability in Jamaica, or just working in other security incident response fields in the Ministry of National Security. So I didn't know if I should just mention the one that I wanted mainly, which is just JCERT, or if it makes sense to say that, you know, these are other options to where I could go to have that impact that I want to have.
Yeah, for sure. I think you can mention all 3, but of course, just be mindful of your word count, right? And just the story that you're telling. It could make sense. It could make more sense that you're choosing to apply for the place that you want to go to mostly, but also superficially mention that these are other institutions that you probably want to work at that can actually give you that can actually take you or is a reasonable progression to where you want to be, and will allow you to have the impact that you want.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sure. All right, Sherez Jackson. Sherez.
Hi, it's Sherez. I'm using his account. It's Gabriel. I have a question specifically for you, Dervin. Hello to everybody else on the panel. Mine is about the transcript that needs to be uploaded to the Chevening site. My university does not send students the official transcript. Can I upload an unofficial transcript, the PDF?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You see, we make the Chevening Scholarship very simple. We're not stressed out.
Also, Dervin, before I go, a suggestion for the job experience section, please don't put submit to Chevening beside save draft. It's nerve-wracking.
Oh, okay. I'll make a note of that. I'll relay that point. All right. Selena Moss.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good night, everyone. So I would like to pursue my master's degree in sports psychology at Ulster University, and how it works in the UK in terms of sports psychology is there's a bigger organization called the BPS, British Psychologist Society. I'd have to do 1 year, the 1 year degree, but I'd also have to practically do a 2-year work experience in order to become a registered sports psychologist. So I know that the Chevening only covers 1 year of study. So I'm not fully sure how exactly I could go about doing that. And I know that they say you have to come back after 1 year. Would it be that I'd have to come back 1 year, wait the 2 years, and then go back to get the work experience? It kind of seems very challenging. I'm kind of unclear whether the work experience has to be done in the UK or I can do it in Jamaica. Do you have any advice on that?
Okay, so the work experience was a stipulation that the university has?
The BPS, like every institution that I have looked up, essentially the master's degree is the phase 1 and phase 2 is the 2-year working, or I believe you can do your PhD. It's essentially the same thing.
Okay, so the key thing that Chevening will be supporting is the master's degree, right? So the work and experience will not be covered under Chevening, and I'm not even sure how that will actually work out, but it's to give you the master's degree. So whatever it is whatever additional accreditation you need, or work experience that you need, that would happen outside of Chevening, right? So Chevening would do what they needed to do, which is to get you the opportunity to do the master's degree. But whatever comes after that would be on you. But what is key is that you need to ensure that you're doing that you return after your program ends.
Okay,
so I think you may have to do a little bit more research on your end, just kind of figure out how that would work. But the key thing is that it's just for the masters that Chevening would be covering.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Oh wow. Okay. Linval Scott. And then we're gonna take one more person, and I'm gonna just spin the lottery with that. Linval, are you there?
Okay, are you hearing me?
Yes.
This is not Linville, but I don't know how it came up like this. So
I feel like this is a common theme for the whole night. People just say, "Oh, for Skype, when I use," right?
I'm not sure, but good evening, everyone. My question is for the leadership essay, is there any type or sphere of leadership that is given preference? So, for example, leadership in your work, or leadership in your community, or leadership in church? Is there any that is given preference? That's my question.
So the leadership has to be okay. So it's a very tricky way to answer that question, right? So leadership in your professional space really does take precedent over leadership in high school, or leadership perhaps in your voluntary experience at church. But that doesn't necessarily mean that will always supersede one or the other, unless you're able to kind of clearly link that, that leadership that you did in church is also gonna be linking to your bigger path, right? But generally there isn't people have different types of leadership experience, right? So the leadership experience that a senior journalist or a senior lawyer might have may not be the type of leadership experience that someone who was 24, me, I'm talking about me here, someone who is 24 who was a youth advocate would have, right? So the leadership experience is it's different from person to person. And we try not to be prescriptive, but I can tell you what good suggestions would be. Focus on the qualities of a leader, and it's best to align those leadership experiences with something that is linked to what you're interested in doing, right? But that might not always be the case. But at the same time, if you're able to show leadership in what you're interested in doing, or showing leadership in other spheres that you've been in, whether it's in your workplace, whether it's in your community, whether it's in your church, you just have to ensure that that leadership experience is explained sufficiently enough to show that, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about. But ideally, I would suggest that your leadership experience should always be linked to your professional work experience.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Darwin, one of the persons you had called on had a problem with their mic. They were asking if all of the essays were weighted equally. A young lady called Colleen Dawkins asked that question.
Okay. Yes, they're all weighted equally. They're all scored the same. So you fall down in one, it can affect your whole application, right? There are persons who were on the track to getting 16 out of 16 and, just flop with the last essay. And because somebody else, perhaps got all threes and end up getting 12, but this person just end up getting, maybe 11 because they did poorly in one of the essays. It can really impact, it can really affect your application. So it's important that you take care in responding to every one of the questions, so that it's, so that you have a fair chance. I would say though that there are some that I believe are easier to respond to, which I feel like the studying in the UK is one that's easier to respond. I'm gonna ask the panelists, which essay was your favorite? Was the easiest question for you to respond to? Jovan?
Sorry, my little boy just started making noise. I had to play quiet. I'm sorry.
All right. So while you do, okay, all right.
My favorite one was leadership, because I like the challenge of, well, you said easiest, but I like the challenge of demonstrating impact, because I believe that Chevening is primarily about leadership and influence, and as you rightly say, the academic and other things are not as emphasized. So it's about demonstrated impact, and I suppose I had some interesting experiences that the essay required me to look to see how I was creating impact, to the point where I didn't even realize I was creating the kind of impact I did or I had, until I was able to write them down and say, hey, but then this led to this is the result that occurred, and this is how it can enhance the Chevening message, if you will. So I really enjoyed that one.
Alex?
All right. Actually, as a confession, I mean, based on different themes for the different essays, it actually opened my eyes more about myself. So my least favorite was probably networking, based on the type of person I am. I would say I'm more reserved or shy. So it actually allowed me to see for myself like what I've been doing that actually involves networking. But my favorite was the contributing back to society, as in coming back to Jamaica, because I had a lot of plans in my head of what this degree can help, not only for my self-development, but for Jamaica itself. So that was the easiest one for me. So my least favorite was the networking, and my favorite was giving back to society.
All right, Monique?
What happened to ladies first, Darwin? My least favorite, let me start on a positive note. My favorite one was networking. It made me think about how nuanced networking can be, being respectful and polite to persons, and in naturally you get respect and politeness back. So that is as simple as that. That can be networking, and as technical as being a leader of a social club or something like that. What was hard for me was writing down my career path, or putting into words my career path, because at the time I had short-term goals, and writing the career path made me think about long-term goals, and what my short-term goals would then materialize. So it helped me, and everything I put on that paper I have done to date. So it helped me as a person as well as with the application.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna jump. What I really like about having, just doing this whole the whole webinar series with other scholars is because they're able to share their very real experiences. Because I know a lot of people who join these sessions have the impression that you need to have your thing together to apply. And the truth is, a lot of us we never know where we are though. Now, me can tell you from before, so me never like writing none of the essay them, and it did stress me out. Me never like it none at all. In fact, I remember writing about 600 words for my leadership, and then realized I might have 3 more essay to write. Stress. That was just pure stress for me. But I would say that what I did enjoy was talking about my leadership experience. And the reason why I talked about it, because I realized, but there me are going with things, you actually do nice things. I wasn't bright at UA. In fact, I barely skip, I barely pass. I don't know how I end up at UCL, which by the way is one of the top universities in the world. It is ranked.
Lord.
It is ranked 8th
Yes, it's a top 10,
globally.
Dervin. Yes, it's a top 10.
It's ranked 8th globally. So me the surprise I got through, right? But I think what it was the impact of the work that I was doing, and the level of leadership that I was displaying, even as a young person. And I think that is what I want to instill with, you all who are listening and who are joining. I'm pretty sure you're all doing amazing work in your spaces, and therefore, because of that, you have the potential to be a leader if you're not already one. So this is why I would end on the note by saying, if you fall into the category of being that influencer, that leader, because you possess these leadership qualities, then the Chevening Scholarship is most certainly for you. Now, before I hand over to final comments from Monique, Jovan, and Alex, please follow us on the Chevening Jamaica pages on YouTube. There are some videos that are up now. We also on Instagram, and also the Chevening alumni pages on LinkedIn, right? So Monique, Jovan, and Alex. Oh, one other thing for persons who had asked about the email before, the email is right here, chevening.jamaica@fcdo.gov.uk. But I do prefer that you reach out to the Chevening website first, because chances are, if you ask me a question, I'm probably going to be directing you to a link to the Chevening website. And sometimes it's easier just typing into Google eligible institutions, or Google eligibility criteria, or Google, difference between masters and MA, or Chevening, or whatever it may be. So like, Chevening is a very comprehensive website, but if you're still lost and you're not getting the answer that you want, you can always just send an email to the email that you're seeing there, chevening.jamaica@fcdo.gov.uk. Now, Monique, Jovan, and Alex, what are your final points?
I was
Final
actually,
point.
well, go ahead, Monique, because I have a long story to share with the panelists. I mean, the attendees.
Final points are that, as to echo what Dervin said, the website is completely comprehensive. There are tons of pages. Comb that website if you want this scholarship. Do the research, comb the website. Their questions can be answered on the website. And then only in extreme cases, then you can probably need to talk to somebody like Dervin or otherwise. Chevening alumni are all over. You can reach out to them, talk to them. But Chevening is for a specific kind of person, and if you have it, the scholarship will be for you. So do your best, be as natural. I can't stress that enough, because I think that's what worked in my favor. I put my heart out there, and I was accepted on the first try. So be as natural as possible, and just wish for the best. Good luck to everybody.
All right, Jovan.
I endorse what Monique said. I mean, guys, the beautiful thing about Chevening is that there's no cap on age. And as I've told previous scholars, a rejection in a particular year does not necessarily mean that you were not good, you were weak. You just came up against good competition. Sometimes I think it's also the interest of the British High Commission as well. They're looking at at things that are critical to the relationship and what they think is in the interest of Jamaica and how they want to diversify the programs and so on. So do not be daunted by the process. And typically, as you'll find, most things that you perhaps have achieved in life came through some difficulty, some stress, and this is just another one of them. And you just have to go through the process, the research, ask questions. It's costing you nothing at the moment, except some schools require you to pay for applications and so on, but that's minuscule, really, given the opportunity that lies ahead. Which is just amazing. And part of the journey is this application process. So it was stressful for me. I applied in my time between October, sometime between October and the end and the deadline, I applied. So I had to get all of those things within about 3 weeks or so, and applications open in August. And that's it. So I'm just encouraging you guys to seek the help, seek the guidance, put in the work. If you have to write 10 essays, 10 drafts, write it. Because when you get the scholarship, if you don't get it this year or next year or 5 years from this, when you eventually get it, you will not remember that you wrote five essays, or you will probably remember, but it will be a joyful remembrance. I'm encouraging you to ensure that you stick to it and have your goal in mind. And it helps to clarify your own self as well and your sense of the purpose, your career path, I mean, your family, all these things. And that's what the Chevening process and the 4 essays in particular do as well. So I'm wishing you all the very best. I'm on Twitter at Jovanthony. I'm sorry, Dervin, but if you want to make contact, or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, you can make contact. We're all there, and there are 200 of us. So all the very best.
All right, Alex, you're up next.
Right. So I just want to touch on the 2 points that Monique and Jovan said. For me, the essays were very daunting, meaning I started in summer and the application was in November. Reason being because I didn't like to write. And it forced me to actually spend some time to know about myself and to put it on paper. So if you're trying to get your essays in top shape, I mean, do it from now and don't wait last minute. I want to touch on Monique's point as it relates to be natural. So for me, this is a personal experience. My top 3 schools were Imperial, UCL, and Southampton. And I didn't get through to the first 2. So when I got accepted to do the interview, I went to ask myself, I'll be frank with the panelists and say, hey, I didn't get through to the first 2, but I'm in the process of getting through with King's. Would you allow me to get the scholarship if I got through to King's? And they said yes. Just being myself and being frank with the panelists, it actually showed the human element. So you don't think, I don't want persons to think this is just, they have a selective or the different fields of what you're studying. Once you're being honest with them, they can tell. So be yourself and don't try to fluff your essays because they can read through it as well. So start your process from now. I reach out a lot of past alumni. And I think I decided to jump on because I know Dervin had mentioned that, you were missing action for some of the webinars. So I decided to I'm not a person who is out there in the public's eyes. So I'm a very reserved person, but I wanted to lend my expertise or experience with the Chevening application to anyone who's interested to just apply. So if you're interested in finance or anything of the related courses, ask Dervin to see if he could reach out to me, or I can just leave my contact information here so he can reach out as well. So have fun and looking forward to some greeting cards from the UK as well.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Floron Frankson asked a couple of questions, and I'm gonna respond to the question. Are the essay questions repetitive? And can your response be used for future applications if not successful at the time, even though you were listed for an interview? Yes, you can resubmit the same applications or the same essays, but it would be a year afterwards, right? So therefore, something must have happened within that year that you can use to bump and amplify your essays. But yes, you can resubmit the same essay. In terms of whether essay questions are repetitive, I'm not sure what you're asking here, but I think I might have answered it. But just in case there's another way to interpret this question, each essay has a different, is asking a specific thing. Like I said, leadership and influencing, networking, studying in the UK, and your career path. So they're very different. But if you're asking if it's repetitive in terms that you can use them again, yes, you can use the essays again, but the suggestion is always to tweak them to take into consideration the year that you had to rewrite the essays. Now, Monique, well, Jovan kind of listed his social media page. I know many of you know who and Alex just kind of shared his email address. I love that for you guys. Now, as someone who manages the Chevening Scholarship, I know a lot of you would have reached out to me via social media or via LinkedIn, and I will try to respond as best as I can. But I do urge you to just send an email to the Chevening email that is listed. The Chevening email address, because it's me, I'll be responding to it, right? And when you do send an email, you do get an automatic reply that gives a very comprehensive, a comprehensive list of things that you should know. But if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or any other social media pages, I will respond. Just know that it may take time for me to respond because I do try to distinguish my social media space from work, and sometimes work stressful, right? And also, do not ask me to read your essays. I will be reading them, and therefore I'm not able to support you in writing your essays. This is as far as I can go. Now, thank you all so much. We capped at 300 and odd persons at one point joining this call today, and I hope I responded to as many of your questions as possible. If it is that you do still have more questions, please again send an email to the email address that you see below, and we will respond as soon as you can. Monique, Jovan, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time out. And of course, thank you all for joining for 2.5 hours. Remember me did tell you, say never they're gonna last for 1 hour because I have only per questions to ask. And we will consider having another one sometime in October, just to kind of give you one more push before applying for before the scholarship deadlines close. Another question?
Sorry, David, are we allowed to review essays?
Yes, you can. You can by all means reach out to any one of the alumni network that you guys listed earlier. Again, we have 275. Reach out to any of them except me. Right? So reach out to Alex, reach out to Jovan, reach out to Monique, reach out to Kamisha, reach out to Ajane, reach out to Cliff Hughes, reach out to all of these amazing people, especially communications and the lawyers and the journalists. Them know how to sell things, right? Because for the past for how many years they were dominating the scholarship. In 2018, in Alex's year, mostly 4 journalists. Can you imagine 4 journalists get the scholarship? So them know how to sell, right? But again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And again, this evening this webinar will be shared to everyone who registered, but also it will be available on the YouTube, on the Chevening Jamaica YouTube pages, as you can see right here, as well as the social media, and of course on LinkedIn as well. So I'm gonna leave you with this mashup video of 5 of our scholars from this year. Kenil Peart, who's doing artificial intelligence, Alicia Hamilton Campbell, who will be doing dermatology, Deborah Calendar, who will be doing dementia studies, Norman Tai, who will be doing electrical engineering, and I think he's doing transport planning and engineering, and Dane Anderson, who will be doing electrical engineering. So thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hi, I'm Alicia Hamilton Campbell, and I'll be pursuing the clinical masters. Why do I keep saying that? Hi, I'm Alicia Hamilton Campbell, and I'll be pursuing clinical dermatology at King's College London, and I'm a proud Chevening, Jamaica scholar.
Hi, my name is Janelle Williams, and I'm one of Jamaica's Chevening Scholars for 2021. I'll be heading to the University College London to study a Master of Science in Climate Change.
Hello, I am Norman Tai, and I am a Chevening Scholar for Jamaica for 2021. I will be doing a Master of Science in Transport Planning and Engineering at the University of Leeds.
Hi, I'm Debbie Callender. I'm one of Jamaica's Chevening Scholars for 2021. I'm going to Brighton and Sussex Medical School for a Master's of Science in Dementia Studies.
My name is Dane Anderson. I am a 2021 recipient of the Chevening Scholarship. I'll be pursuing a Master's of Science in Sustainable Electrical Power at the Brunel University, London.
Hi, my name is Kenil Peart, a 2021 Chevening Scholar from Jamaica. I'll be studying Artificial Intelligence at the University of Southampton.
So Chevening offers this incredible opportunity for everyone to pursue their education. We know finances is really, really important to pursue education, and so Chevening offered that opportunity. Secondarily, for people who are not coming directly from an undergrad program, this is perfect for older, mature students to really continue to further their education.
But let's be honest, Chevening is the enviable award. It's much more than just furthering your studies. It is an opportunity to establish yourself in a network locally and globally of persons who are passionate about leadership and national development. And I want to be a part of that group.
I chose Chevening as a scholarship because one, I am 50 years old, and they open the scholarship to all ages. So Chevening is truly for everyone. Secondly, Chevening is an excellent award. My sister was also a Chevening scholar, and she did it when she was a teenager, and I'm doing it now that I'm in the time of my life. So Chevening is an excellent award on many levels.
To make an impact, you need people around you who are also interested in making an impact. Chevening is a built-in network of people all around the world that want to make an impact in very specific areas in their local economies.
Gosh, it's really hard to pick just one thing. I mean, you have COP26, which is really targeting climate change that's happening in the UK this year. But outside of that, I want to go to Baker Street. I was a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. I want to see the British Museum and to go and visit Lundy, which is the UK's very own Galapagos. Can I do that again? I'm also looking forward to seeing the UK's very own Galapagos in Lundy to see sea lions. We don't have that here in Jamaica, so I'm looking forward to that.
What I'm looking forward mostly about the UK is being immersed in one of the best and sophisticated transportation systems globally. Of course, I'm an engineer, so I want to be in that space. I have never been to the UK before. I'm particularly interested in going to Scotland for many reasons. One, the Orkney Islands in Scotland are a model of sustainable energy transition. Two, it's close to where COP26 will be held in Glasgow, Scotland. And I'm just generally interested in visiting the UK, all the cultural experiences that can be had there.
So I'm particularly looking forward to traveling. I want to see all the castles. There's so many medieval architecture in the UK, and I really want to go to see Lion King in the theater.
What I'm looking forward to most in the UK is to have the opportunity to experience a white Christmas. The lights, the environment, just having love and family and sharing just that wonderful moment of Christmas, as well as immersing myself in one of the most modern medical institutions in the world, the place where DNA was first discovered and explored, and I'm totally looking forward to that at King's College London.
You never know if you're going to get this opportunity. As long as you've done the bachelor's, meet the eligibility requirements, apply. I didn't think I was going to get it, and I'm sitting here before you as one of Jamaica's Chevening Scholars this year, so definitely go for it. Don't hold back and do the best that you can. Good luck.
Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Do not hesitate. Do not question yourself. It doesn't matter your field. Chevening does not limit you. So do your research and go for it.
No matter what age you are, as long as you're over 18, you can apply for a Chevening Scholarship. You don't have to be limited by your age. You don't have to be limited by what kind of profession you're in. It's a scholarship that's also open to medical professionals, which is very, very important in our region. Go for it, apply, give yourself an opportunity to do something entirely new and exciting.
Do it. Don't second guess yourself. You have the skills, you just need to unearth those skills and find out what is your why and just apply.
Write your essays, rewrite them, proofread them, ask someone to help you to look at them, do your research. The Chevening website has everything for you to apply.
Chevening is a supportive network of scholars, artists, physicians, architects, engineers. It's a place for everybody, and it can be a place for you.